When Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone on January 9th, 2007, he described it as three products in one: an iPod, a mobile phone, and an internet communicator. To the audience, it sounded revolutionary. Nearly 2 decades later, that simple idea has evolved into something far larger. The iPhone has become a pocket-sized microcomputer that edits videos, runs powerful games, navigates cities, replaces cameras, and for many people serves as their primary connection to the digital world. But how exactly did the iPhone transform from a simple communication device into what it is today? The answer begins 3 years before 2007. Back in 2004, Steve Jobs launched a secret project that aimed to create what was known internally as the iPod phone. At the time, the iPod was one of the hottest products in the world, and Apple wanted to build on its success. The idea was simple: combine the popularity of the iPod with the functionality of a mobile phone and create the next big thing. Early concepts of the device were based heavily on the iPod itself. Instead of a touchscreen, users would navigate and even dial phone numbers using a modified version of the iPod's famous scroll wheel. It may sound strange today, but at the time, Apple was experimenting with ways to bring phone functionality into the iPod experience. The problem was obvious. Using a scroll wheel to dial numbers and navigate a phone felt awkward and limiting. Steve Jobs reportedly realized that the idea had no future, and eventually the concept was dropped. Instead, Apple shifted its focus toward another technology being developed inside the company: multi-touch. That decision would change not only Apple, but the entire smartphone industry. On January 9th, 2007, Apple officially introduced the first iPhone, and the smartphone world would never be the same again. The original iPhone represented the birth of a new era. At a time when smartphones were filled with tiny keyboards and styluses, Apple removed nearly all physical buttons and replaced them with a large touchscreen display. The iPhone combined an iPod, a phone, and internet browsing into a single device while introducing multi-touch gestures that felt natural and intuitive. Pinching photos, swiping pages, and tapping icons suddenly became the new standard. It permanently changed expectations for what a phone could be. But despite all of that innovation, the first iPhone had a major limitation. There was no App Store. That changed in 2008 with iPhone 3G, when Apple launched the App Store and quietly transformed the iPhone from a product into an ecosystem. Suddenly, third-party developers could create applications for millions of users around the world. Games, social media platforms, navigation apps, and productivity tools began appearing everywhere. The phone was no longer limited to what Apple included in the box. It could become whatever users wanted it to be. This period marked what could be called the app revolution era. The iPhone was no longer just a communication device. It was becoming a platform. Then, in 2010, Apple introduced one of its most iconic devices ever, the iPhone 4. It brought a complete redesign with glass panels and a stainless steel frame that felt premium and futuristic. More importantly, it introduced the Retina display, making text and images appear incredibly sharp. It also added a front camera that allowed FaceTime video calls. Looking back today, many people still consider the iPhone 4 one of Apple's greatest designs. A year later, Apple introduced Siri with the iPhone 4S. While voice assistants now feel common, Siri represented one of the first major attempts to bring conversational interaction into smartphones. For many users, speaking directly to a phone felt like stepping into the future. Then came another important shift: security. In 2013, the iPhone 5S introduced Touch ID, allowing users to unlock their phones with their fingerprints instead of typing passwords. It also became the first smartphone with a 64-bit processor, which gave it performance levels far beyond what many expected from mobile device. But perhaps one of Apple's biggest changes arrived the following year. For years, Steve Jobs had resisted making larger phones because he believed smartphones should fit comfortably in one hand. Yet consumer demand was changing. People wanted bigger displays for videos, games, and social media. In 2014, Apple finally embraced this shift with the iPhone 6. The larger display helped push iPhone sales to new heights and marked the beginning of the big screen era. Then in 2017, 10 years after the first iPhone launched, Apple introduced the iPhone X. This device removed perhaps the most recognizable feature of the iPhone, the home button. In its place came Face ID and an edge-to-edge display. The design language of modern smartphones changed almost overnight. For the next several years, Apple continued refining this formula. In 2020, the iPhone 12 introduced 5G connectivity while bringing back the flat edges inspired by the iPhone 4. Then, more recently, Apple entered the USB-C era, moving away from the Lightning port and making the iPhone more compatible with universal accessories. Looking back, the story of the iPhone can be divided into different chapters: the birth of the smartphone era, the app revolution, the rise of larger displays, and the Face ID era that still continues today. What started as a failed attempt to create an iPod phone eventually became something much larger. The iPhone evolved from a simple communication device into one of the most important pieces of technology ever created. And with artificial intelligence beginning to reshape technology, once again, the next chapter of the iPhone story may already be starting.